The Crow's secret medical center breathed in silence beneath the crumbling facade of an abandoned house. Hidden in the quiet alleys of Crow's Foot, the surface structure wore its disguise well, peeling paint, overgrown vines, sagging roof tiles that moaned with age. Yet below the creaking floorboards, life thrived in a maze of dim corridors and the harsh buzz of fluorescent lights. Rabbit Foot hunched over a corner table in the war room, a weathered map unrolled before him. His fingers moved with purpose over the faded ink. The garden, he murmured. The sisters wouldn't have guarded it so fiercely if it was just flowers and ghosts. Before he could follow the thread of his thoughts any further, the steel door swung open with a metallic groan. Harlequina strode in, her coat trailing behind like a curtain drawn in haste. "Rabbit," she said, tone clipped and urgent. "You'll want to see this. I've called the others." Moments later, Jack the boy, Harry Potter, and Bixano entered. Each carried a different flavor of tension, Jack's restless energy, Harry's wary alertness, Bixano's steady calm. They circled the table as Harlequina slapped down a folded newspaper clipping. The headline bled ink across the table: "Tragedy at the Tower, Marik Ishtar found dead." Rabbit scanned the page, expression unreadable. Jack leaned in with a low whistle. "Didn't see that coming," Jack muttered. "Or maybe I did." "He was a power-hungry bastard," Harry Potter said, arms crossed. "But dying in his own house? That's personal." Bixano stepped forward, his gaze steady. "There's more." All eyes turned to him. He spoke with quiet intensity. "I know Ishizu Ishtar. Marik's sister. She's been living at the Deadlands, working with the unseen." Harlequina raised an eyebrow. "We know her too, but go on." "Well," Bixano said. "And she told me this weeks ago, when her brother dies, she'll die soon after. Not metaphorical. She said it like it was written in blood." Rabbit Foot's brows knitted together. "Then someone's cleaning house." Harlequina leaned closer to the news clipping. "And we've only seen the first strike. We're going to that funeral," Rabbit declared, voice cold with resolve. "And we're not going to pay respects." "You think they'll show?" asked Harry. "They'll have to," Rabbit said. Just as the Crows prepared to depart for the funeral of Captain Marik Ishtar. A high-profile event set within the governor's estate, drawing the most powerful in Doskvol, Harry Potter raised his voice amid the buzz of plans and urgency. "Wait," he said, "before we go, we should try to intercept Ishizu. If she's really going to that funeral, we might still have a chance to stop her." The room fell into thoughtful silence. Rabbit Foot exchanged a look with Harlequina, and Jack the boy gave a subtle nod. Bixano's eyes flickered with worry. "She's important," Bixano added. "We owe it to her. And to ourselves." No one argued. The journey to the Deadlands began at once. Through the twisting shadows of the forest that encircles Doskvol, the Crows traveled with grim purpose. The deeper they went, the more the city fell away behind them, swallowed by the unnatural hush of the Whispering Grove. Spirits stirred like breath on the wind, whispering through the gnarled trees. At the grove's heart, a mighty ancient tree rose like a monument to secrets. Beneath its outstretched limbs, Jackie Comer tended a pot over open flame, the firelight dancing across his worn features. The elusive leader of the unseen didn't flinch as the Crows emerged from the gloom. Rabbit Foot stepped forward. "We're looking for Ishizu." Jackie stirred the pot. "She's gone." Harlequina's voice cut through the smoke. "Gone where?" "To her brother's funeral," Jackie said plainly. A cold wind seemed to sweep through the grove. The air grew still. "She left alone?" asked Bixano, his voice low. "She said her death would follow his." "This is it, isn't it?" Jackie nodded once, slowly. "She knew it was coming. Still wanted to go. Said she had to say goodbye." "She's walking into her own grave," muttered Harlequina. She asked me not to interfere, Jackie replied. Said if the crows showed up, to let them try. I'm keeping that promise. Jack the boy stepped forward then, his tone softer. You've guided her all this way. You care. Don't leave us in the dark now. Tell us what she's really walking into. Jackie finally met his eyes. She's shaken. But she's made her peace. She believes her death will unlock something far bigger than herself. I don't know what it means, but she was clear. She doesn't want to be saved. She wants to finish this. The fire crackled between them. The crows turned without a word. Time was short. Ishizu was already en route, walking into a tangle of power, secrets, and danger. The funeral loomed, a theater of velvet, lies, and veiled blades. And amid it all, the truth behind Marik's murder, the threat to Ishizu's life, and the name of Rabbit Foot, dripping with scandal, and hanging by a thread. The crows approached the governor's estate under cover of dusk, shadows trailing them like old debts. The plan was paper-thin, half whisper, half instinct. They would improvise. They had to. Bixano, Harlequina, and Harry Potter arrived first, dressed as somber attendees. Each wore borrowed finery and stiff expressions, stepping through the wrought iron front gates under the watchful eyes of uniformed guards. Inside, the estate bloomed with mourners cloaked in mourning black, their silk-gloved hands hiding secrets and old vendettas. Keep your head down, whispered Harlequina, scanning the crowd. These people eat ghosts for breakfast. Bixano nodded grimly, eyes sweeping the courtyard. This place has been transformed. Black drapes in every window. Death's mask over the whole house. Harry didn't speak. He simply moved with the fluid grace of someone used to slipping into places where he didn't belong. They took seats among the other guests. The crowd was silent, heavy with wealth and whispers. Beside them sat ministers, nobles, scholars from Charter Hall, and dons of Duskwall's mercantile underbelly. Harlequina's fingers drummed on her lap. This was enemy territory. At the back of the estate, Jack the boy and Rabbit Foot crouched behind the rusted iron fence near the warehouse. 2 guards manned the rear gate, but their posture betrayed their boredom. Jack arched an eyebrow. Too easy, Rabbit murmured. Jack grinned. Too easy is never easy. The 2 crows struck silently, shadows against shadows. In seconds, the guards were down, slumped in the bushes like discarded coats. Rabbit pulled the gate open, wincing at the creak, and they slipped into the shadows of the manor's back halls. The estate loomed before them, a place of opulence and rot. They exchanged a glance. It was never going to be simple. Back at the front, the funeral had begun. A woman stood at the altar. Elaine Bellick. Her black dress shimmered like oil under the gaslights. Her voice rose above the silence. Marik Ishtar was a man of structure in a city of chaos. Yes, he made enemies. Who in power has not? But he was a servant. A guardian. And in the end, he was hunted and betrayed by lies. The crowd listened, silent, captivated. I refuse to let the last image of Marik be one of scandal. He deserved more than whispers. He deserved time. Time to fight. Time to speak. Now, all he has left, is silence. Harlequina watched with a frown. She had fought Marik's darkness in the streets, bled because of his schemes, but even she felt a chill at Elaine's words. After the speech, ushers guided the mourners to the open coffin placed at the front of the garden. Marik Ishtar lay within, adorned in his polished officer's uniform, cold and perfect in death. The line of mourners coiled slowly toward him like a serpent. Bixano and Harry fell in with the others, drifting toward the body. Harlequina remained behind, watching from the pews, eyes scanning for Ishizu, or for trouble. The air around the coffin was thick with incense and whispered grief. Bixano moved through the line with careful steps, eyes alert behind a veil of mourning. Then he saw her. Ishizu Ishtar. The oracle of the unseen stood silently near the front, her frame slight but unshaken. Draped in muted tones and shadow, she gazed upon her brother's still face with eyes that held more time than her years should allow. A single tear carved a slow line down her cheek. Bixano slipped beside her, his voice soft, reverent. "I'm sorry. Truly." She didn't look at him, but the corners of her mouth twitched into a knowing smile. "I knew you would come. You're not safe here, Ishizu." "I know," she said simply. "But I came to say goodbye. You could be killed. You're welcome to try and stop it." Bixano fell quiet. There was nothing to say to someone who had already seen the future unfold. He just stood beside her, a quiet sentinel in her moment of mourning. Across the lawn, Harlequina's instincts flared. Her gaze locked on a man seated toward the back, a tall, finely dressed guest whose movements didn't match his station. He rocked in his chair like a child lost in thought, muttering under his breath. "It's late, it's very late." She stepped closer, her pulse rising. The man's eyes were milk white, staring into something no one else could see. Harlequina's breath caught. She'd seen this kind of trance before, deep, dangerous hypnosis. The kind that left men hollow. Just as her realization surfaced, so did his awareness. His head snapped toward her. He stood in one fluid, jerking motion. Harlequina's eyes widened as he raised a concealed pistol, pointing it not at her, but across the funeral, to the very line where Bixano, Ishizu, and Harry stood near the coffin. She lunged forward, mouth opening to shout. Too late. The man's finger tensed on the trigger. The crowd began to scream. The gunshot cracked through the air like a divine curse, silencing the funeral with brutal finality. For one sharp breath, the world held still. Then Harlequina moved. "Get down," she roared, launching herself across the lawn. The finely dressed man, now half lurching out of his seat, barely had time to react before Harlequina collided with him. They tumbled into the grass, her knee digging into his chest as she fought for control of the gun. He writhed with inhuman strength, his mouth still muttering the same phrase like a broken clock. "It's late, it's very late." A flash of metal. A sharp click. "Shit!" Harlequina's eyes went wide as something cold and round rolled between them. "Grenade!" The crowd erupted. Screams ripped the solemn air. Guests in black trampled each other in blind panic. Velvet coats flew like birds escaping fire. An Esperida's officer rushed in, barking orders. "Get back! Drop your weapon!" He dropped to Harlequina's side without hesitation, grabbing the attacker's arm. "He's not stopping." Harlequina grunted, gripping the man's wrist. "He wants to die." Her hand darted for the grenade, slick with panic. "Help me, damn it, he's going to kill everyone." Another officer dashed forward, eyes snapping to the live grenade. "Give it," he shouted, snatching it from her. With one practiced motion, he hurled it far into the trees. Thud. No explosion. Just the pounding of feet, the clash of bodies, and the sudden dread of survival. Harlequina gasped for breath. "You need to secure that man, he's under hypnosis. Powerful, dangerous kind. I've seen this before." "You're a guest," the officer said, panting. "You've done more than expected. Go. Inside. Now." "I can still help," she snapped, shaking him off. "I'm not leaving while this mess is still spinning." He met her gaze, firm but appreciative. "We've got protocols. We'll take care of this. Go." Reluctantly, Harlequina backed away, eyes scanning for her friends. Across the field, Harry was gripping Ishizu's hand. "We need to get out of here. Now." "No," she said calmly. You need to see this. What? Ishizu, what? Then came the pain, sharp, electric. Harry stumbled as the world around him dimmed, and inside his mind, another world began. A flash, Jerome, in a cell bed, lips curled in a smirk. Jack Napier, someone say to him outside his cell, dressed as a guard. This was not his name, everyone knew who Jerome was. This was different. Behind the guard, two other people appeared. Jerome knew this was different, they were there for him. Jerome smiled. Another, Harry hunched over a desk, runes scattered across parchment. If I push just a little more, then a knock at the door, Tricerium walks in and greets Harry. Another, Ishizu in a shadowed grove, coughing blood into her palms. This is the price, she whispered. A man walks closer. This is nothing compared to what I have planned, the man says. Ishizu looks up, to the figure of Jerome Valeska laughing as he approaches her. Stop, stop. Harry gasped, snapping back to reality. Someone had grabbed him, an Esperitas officer yanking him from Ishizu's side. Inside. Now. Move. Ishizu, wait. Harry shouted. But she was already gone, swallowed by the storm of bodies fleeing in every direction. Bixano saw her vanish too. No. He shouted, forcing his way through the crowd, but it was like swimming through collapsing waves. Where is she? Keep moving, an officer ordered, pushing him toward the building. Inside, chaos continued. Chandeliers shook overhead as the throng of Doskval's elite stumbled through marbled corridors. Esperitas officers and Imperial guards screamed orders, forming barricades, sealing off exits. We're under attack, someone shrieked. Outside, 3 more gunshots split the air. Inside, silence fell, followed by a second wave of screams. The crows were inside the beast now, scattered, alert, wounded in different ways, but far from broken. And deep in the mansion's bones, Rabbit and Jack the boy crept through forgotten hallways, still unaware that the war had already begun. The underground chamber beneath the governor's house pressed down like a crypt, cold, quiet, cloaked in shadow. Crates lined the walls, wooden towers of forgotten goods, their labels faded and edges rotted. The dim light barely illuminated the path forward, and every creak of wood or distant footstep felt like the breath of some lurking secret. Jack the boy crouched near a crate, prying the top with practiced ease. Storage, not sanctuary, he muttered. There's nothing here but dusty uniforms and things nobody wanted. Behind him, Rabbit Foot stood motionless, eyes narrowed, listening. Someone's ahead, he whispered. Boots. Maybe patrol. Maybe worse. Jack didn't glance back. If this was important, it wouldn't be stashed in a pile like this. The good stuff's where they lock the doors and bolt the locks. Rabbit reached for the Millennium Ring hanging from his neck, the metal cold and strangely heavy against his chest. He closed his eyes, breath deepening. Then let's find where the locks are. The ring pulsed with energy, glowing softly in the dim. The chain around his neck twitched as if caught in an unseen breeze, and a spectral beam of light emerged, pointing to a corridor beyond the crates. Rabbit opened his eyes, a grin forming on his lips. This way. Jack rose, grinning back. Now we're talking. But Rabbit's smile turned rigid. His hand trembled. Then, nothing. He was no longer in control. Rabbit watched, helpless, as his body moved without him. A ghost in his own skin. His arm raised. His hand gripped the pistol. No, no, no. What are you doing? But his voice didn't echo in the room, it echoed only inside the void of his mind. Jack looked up, oblivious to the horror unfolding behind Rabbit's eyes. You all right? You look, a gunshot cracked through the chamber, tearing past Jack's shoulder and slamming into the wood behind him. What the hell, Rabbit? Another shot. Jack dove, crashing into a dark corner as he yanked a smoke grenade from his belt. It burst in a puff of white haze, cloaking the room in shifting fog. Rabbit's body stepped forward. Another shot. Jack vanished behind a slammed door. The lock clicked. Footsteps retreated. Still, Rabbit watched. Still, the spirit controlled him. Inside his mind, the voice came like thunder across a desert, speaking in a tongue lost to time. Ancient Egyptian. A chant. A curse. A command. Bakura. The name struck deep, like an old memory returning with blood on its edge. Rabbit's thoughts screamed against the walls of his mind. You're after the item too. We want the same thing. But the spirit didn't care. It moved his body with purpose, stalking through the fog, reaching the door. It tugged the handle, locked. It pounded once, twice. Inside, Rabbit watched his own fist bruise against the wood. He felt the rage, but it wasn't his. Bakura snarled through his lips in a tongue only half heard, pacing like a caged beast. You think you can control me? You think I'll let you destroy everything? Rabbit shouted into the void of his own consciousness. No reply. Only pressure. Wait. A crushing sensation of being drowned in ink-black will. Then, resolve. Rabbit inhaled in his mind. If you won't listen, then I'll fight you. The words rang out inside like steel drawn from its sheath. Rabbit braced himself, not with muscle, not with magic, but with memory. With identity. With stubborn, street-earned grit. Bakura still wore his face. Still moved his body. But Rabbit Foot would not give up the war for himself. Not without a fight. Inside the grand halls of the governor's mansion, the tension hung as thick as the velvet curtains that veiled every window. The air reeked of panic and perfume, the confusion of the elite now herded like cattle by uniformed guards. Harlequina stood near the main exit, lips curled in barely restrained fury. Let me out, she snapped at the nearest guard, her voice sharp as broken glass. The man, firm but polite, shook his head. We can't risk anyone leaving. Orders. She whirled on her heel and stalked toward an inner corridor, only to find 2 more guards barring her path. That way's locked too, ma'am. Please remain in the reception hall. Damn it all, she hissed. Her fists clenched, her shoulders tight, her breath shallow. She felt caged, like a lioness cornered, teeth bared but nowhere to strike. This wasn't how she worked. She wasn't meant to sit still while people she cared about danced on the edge of death. Desperately, she scanned the sea of bodies. Somewhere in that crush of silk and panic were Bixano, Harry, and Ishizu. Her eyes finally caught a familiar silhouette, Harry, standing at the edge of the crowd, staring at a side door with focused intensity. His gaze was narrow, locked onto something unseen. Harlequina knew that look, it meant pursuit. Then, for the briefest second, Harry glanced at her. A flicker of guilt flashed across his face. He gave her a small, silent nod of apology. And vanished. Damn it, Harry, she spat, the boy's magic cloaking him in invisibility. She tried to charge after the door he'd watched, but 2 more guards intercepted her. Ma'am, we said, get your hands off me. That boy, he just vanished through that door. No one went through, ma'am. Please calm down. I will not calm down, she roared. I'm not some bloody noble to be coddled. Let me out or give me something to punch. Her voice echoed across the chamber, and still they would not budge. She was trapped. Trapped, while everything unraveled around her. Beyond that locked door, Harry reappeared in an empty corridor, his boots soft against the polished floor. The security had thinned, most of the guards drawn away to deal with the chaos outside. The mansion's interior now felt like a tomb, long and echoing, steeped in secrets. He moved quickly, cautious and quiet, until he rounded a corner and found her. Ishizu Ishtar stood poised in the center of the next room, her hands pressed against the frame of a painted wall panel, her breath short. "What are you doing here?" she whispered, without turning. "I should ask you the same," Harry replied. "This place is crawling with danger. You shouldn't be here." "I know." Her voice was clipped. "Focused. Then come back. We can keep you safe." "No," she snapped. "Don't raise your voice. Guards are coming." A pair of armored boots clattered down the hall behind them. The two fell silent, and Ishizu slipped deeper into the room. Harry followed, frustration mounting. The corridors ahead were narrow and sloping downward, deeper into the old underworks. He recognized this. The secret spaces. The haunted halls of the governor's house. Rabbit and Jack had spoken of these once, in stories whispered after long nights. Then it hit him. She wasn't here just to grieve. She was heading for the hidden Millennium item. Harry's heart clenched. That meant she was walking into the same darkness that might kill her. "I'm sorry, Ishizu," he murmured. "But I can't let you go any further." As she moved ahead, he struck. Quick and gentle as possible, but firm. Her knees buckled, and he caught her before she fell. "This is for your safety," he whispered, laying her gently against the cold wall. From around her neck, he removed the Millennium necklace, its gem pulsing faintly with protest. "I'll give it back. I promise." He didn't wait for her forgiveness. He couldn't afford to. Down the next corridor, Harry moved like a shadow, clutching the artifact as his thoughts raced. Then he heard them, voices ahead. He pressed himself to the wall and inched closer. Around the bend, a strange trio stood speaking in harsh whispers. One man, in his condiment-stained vest and mad glint, was stirring a metal vial of something thick and glowing. "All right, listen up," the man said, voice theatrical. "We're minutes away. I want this place crawling with flavor. Hot sauce behind the western alcove, set it up like we rehearsed. The moment the coffin doors open again, we trigger the mustard bomb. Confuse them, choke their air, scatter them like ants under a kettle." One of his goons, a wiry man with a crooked nose, grunted. "What about the girl? That necklace thing she's got?" The man's eyes twitched. "Forget the necklace. You know our orders. She's won't leave this house. And by not leave, I mean not alive. Got it?" The second goon, a burly man with a cleaver strapped to his back, laughed nervously. "You think we'll make it out, Mitchell?" Mitchell rolled his eyes. "With a plan this tasty? We'll be legends." Harry's breath caught in his throat. They were moving fast. They had instructions. Create chaos, steal what they could. And they were close. Too close. In the dim underbelly of the governor's estate, Jack knelt before a solid iron door, fingers dancing with deft precision over the ancient locking mechanism. His tools clicked with familiar rhythm, but every tick of the tumblers was underscored by a rising dread. The lack of guards was unsettling. It meant the chaos upstairs had spilled into the heart of the fortress. They were out of time. Then, footsteps. Steady, deliberate. Jack spun, heart kicking against his ribs. From the shadows emerged Rabbit Foot, his frame framed in darkness, posture wary. Jack stiffened. "Are you," he began, but Rabbit finished with a weary grin, "back to my old self. I'm sorry about that. Got taken over by an ancient Egyptian spirit. Hope you understand." Jack blinked, then smirked, voice dry as a desert wind. "It happens all the time in this town." The moment hung for a beat, then shattered. From the far corridor, three figures emerged. At the center stood Mitchell Mayo, clad in his usual condiment-splattered vest, flanked by his two loyal goons. His eyes lit up when he saw the crows, a grin stretching across his absurd face. Well, 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 Mitchell chirped. Looks like you two are about to become the secret sauce in my little recipe for ruin. Mitchell Mayo, Rabbit muttered with a curl of disdain. Mitchell raised a gleaming, pressurized gun, its tank sloshing with a bubbling white fluid. Hope you're ready for the spicy mayo special, boys. He fired without warning. A jet of corrosive acid sizzled through the air. Jack rolled aside, narrowly avoiding the spray that melted a patch of stone where he'd been. Seriously? Mayonnaise? Jack shouted. In the smoke and chaos, Rabbit bolted through the now unlocked door. Inside was a small, unlit chamber, at its center, a safe. Tall, reinforced, humming with quiet menace. Rabbit's breath caught in his throat. He threw himself at it, trembling hands tracing its edges. Come on, Lady Luck, be the one. Back in the hallway, Jack ducked behind a support column, drawing fire and trying to keep Mitchell occupied. The two goons flanked, closing in. That's when a hiss cut through the room, low and gurgling, like steam escaping a grave. From the ceiling slithered horror incarnate. A massive centipede, its body armored in chitin, but its head unmistakably that of a Komodo dragon. Its eyes gleamed with primal hunger, and it dropped with a shriek of hatred. The goons shrieked as it landed with a thunderous slam, crushing stone and snapping jaws. Mitchell's face paled. What the hell is? From the corner, a familiar voice roared. Jack hates mayonnaise, dumbass. Harry stood in the archway, hands glowing with spectral energy, his eyes blazing. The beast twisted toward Mitchell, jaws dripping venom. The fight turned to chaos. One of Mitchell's goons was flung by the centipede's tail, slamming through a thick oak door with a sickening crunch. The door swung wide. Jack turned just in time to see what lay beyond, the office of Marik Ishtar. But something was wrong. A fog rolled slowly from the threshold, pale lavender, dancing like silk in the air. Jack's skin went cold. Lad her, he whispered. No. Rabbit stumbled out, clutching a velvet-wrapped bundle, eyes wide. I found it, he panted. I have it. No, Jack said, backing up. That's good. That's great. But we have to go. Now. That fog, lad her, it'll kill everyone. They locked eyes. Both pale. Both terrified. Harry. Jack screamed. Time to leave. The three of them turned and bolted, the centipede crashing behind them in a frenzy. Acid burned into the walls, the fog curled like claws toward the fight. And in the shadowed silence behind them, a war was just beginning. The air inside the governor's mansion was a cage, and Harlequina felt its bars closing in. She prowled the opulent hallways like a lioness denied freedom, her jaw clenched tight and eyes darting from guard to locked door. Every time she moved, a voice reminded her it was, for her safety. Safety. She didn't want safety, she wanted control, action. Answers. And most of all, she wanted her friends. In the flickering light of a grand dining room, she spotted Bixano, hunched at a side table amid a cluster of anxious elites murmuring prayers and false reassurances. Relief broke across her face like glass. She crossed the room fast, crouching beside him. Bix, she hissed. We have to find the others. We have to find Ishizu. She was right there. Bixano nodded quickly, eyes wide with urgency. I lost them after the crowd scattered. But you're right, we can't stay here. We have to try something. Harlequina's gaze snapped to the kitchen door across the room. A single guard stood by it, bored but alert. Distract him, she said. 10 seconds. Bixano nodded once. Then he stood, drawing attention with exaggerated concern. Excuse me, sir, someone fainted in the hall. A woman's choking. The guard moved immediately, and Harlequina and Bixano ducked into the kitchen like shadows. It was quiet, the polished countertops smeared with abandoned plates. Harlequina found the emergency exit at the far end, and cursed. Locked. That's not right, she muttered. Not during a damn attack. She forced the handle, shoved her shoulder into the door, kicked low by the hinges. At last, with a metallic shriek, it gave. The two of them spilled out into the cool garden air. Harlequina's eyes swept the space. The guests had fled. The once elegant chairs were overturned, glass shattered on stone, and in the center of it all, the body of the hypnotized man lay sprawled, blood and bone decorating the flagstones. He had shot himself, a final act of obedience, or desperation. Then her gaze locked on the coffin. It stood alone now, under the silent gaze of a handful of stunned guards. A thin, ghostly mist seeped from beneath its lid. Harlequina's breath caught. Her legs froze. No, she whispered. No, 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 no. Bixano moved closer, sniffing instinctively. His brow furrowed. That smell, what is that? Harlequina's voice was a whisper wrapped in dread. Lad her. Bixano looked at her, confusion turning into horror. Everyone here, they're already dead, her words hung heavy. Harlequina stared at the fog as though it would take shape and swallow her whole. Jerome planned this, she said. He knew everyone would be here. He brought all the power of Doskval to one place, and now it's going to rot from the inside. Her fists shook. Her breath stuttered. Harlequina. Bixano began, but she was already running. He chased after her. What are you doing? Where are we going? To find the others, to find anyone who got out. We can't help these people. We have to save who we can. And behind them, the garden stood silent, veiled in lavender death. The rich. The powerful. The pillars of Doskval's order, crumbling in hours. Harlequina didn't know if they were infected too. She didn't know if they were already doomed. But she ran anyway, and in her heart bloomed one truth: dark times were no longer coming. They were here.